Hey everyone, good afternoon, hi. How are you all doing? Enjoying yourselves at the gathering? Yay, woo! So am I, as you know. If you were at the opening ceremony, you know that I really enjoy being here, not as an organizer, but as a participant and today as a speaker. So I'm also having a great time talking to you guys, and I think it's a great event. So when the organizers asked me what I want to talk about this year, I realized I should probably not answer the questions about my TED Talk individually, one by one, but I'll gather you all in one room and answer all the questions at the same time. And I also want to tell you about this experience because I think it may look different if you see someone like, well, Lýdia, she had a TED Talk, right? And she did a great job, she always does a great job, blah, blah, blah. But actually, the way I saw it was very, very different. And I think there are two different stories to tell about this TED Talk, so I want to share my personal account of this thing with you. Before we do, can I just ask you how many of you have seen my TED Talk about how to learn languages? Oh, wow, that's cool. And one question I'm really curious about is because, so I talked about the polyglots ways of learning languages. And I think for many people it was like, polyglots, wow, there are these people here, wow, they're meeting in their own events, right? So is there anyone out there who maybe came to the gathering because they heard about it from my TED Talk? 1, 2, oh, this is so cool, welcome guys, this is so nice. Wonderful. So before I tell you about how it all happened, I think I don't need to really introduce TED to this community, right? So TED or TEDx, maybe some of you don't know the difference between the two. TED is this series of events which are organized from a headquarters in New York. The main curator is Chris Anderson, and there are many official TED events happening where speakers are invited who are like leaders in their areas, in some type of expertise, who have some ideas that are worth sharing with the world. And then there are many TEDx events, so if it has a little X, it means it's a conference of the same type. There are certain rules as to who gets to be a speaker, what they talk about, or how long the speeches are. But these are organized by individuals. They need to have a license and they can organize their own event, right? And as you can see, there are two pictures of me. I did a TEDx talk in 2016. I was invited to a small Slovak TEDx event, so my speech was in Slovak. And now in New York, the one I had in October was the official TED event. And I had actually, thanks. So I need to tell you before that, that I actually had both of these things on my bucket list for 5 years. I wrote it down 5 years ago and I put a lot of crazy stuff in there, like I want to dive with sharks, you know, and I want to do the Trans-Siberian on my own, travel through all of Russia, and I want to have a TED Talk. And just to be sure that I'm sending the right wishes to the universe, I put into brackets like not just a TEDx talk, right? So I was hoping that one day I would do this, but I was honestly thinking like, you know, when I'm like in my 50s, I have maybe published a book about something, I will have become an expert in whatever area, I didn't even know what it would be about. And so it was my great wish to one day stand on the stage of the TED events, and so the dream came true. I remember the 1 October evening, when it was the 2nd of October, I was at home in Bratislava, and I was going to sleep, and I was just like going to check my emails before doing that, and I see like TED invitation, and you go like, no way, you know, like, no way. Like someone is playing a practical joke on me, so the first thing I checked, like, is this sent from an official TED.com address, right? And it was, and I was like, no way, so I just did a little dance in my room. And then I read the email and it said, hi Lýdia, we would like to send you an official invitation to a TED event. Is this a good email to communicate with you? And so I instantly write like, yes, this is a good email address. Don't change your mind, like this is a very good one, I'm listening. And so then they wrote, we really like your ideas about language learning and we think they are important for the future. That's a quote. And I was like, wow, this is really cool, right? How did you even find me? Like that was the first question. And so when I had a talk with my curator, Alex, so there are 12 curators at TED, as far as I know, and I was communicating with one of them, with the one who found me. And so the first question was like, why me? You know, like, how did you find me? And he smiled and he said, well, that's the question that all of the speakers always ask as the first thing. And they always feel like, but there are other people in the area who should be talking about that, and you know, they have published more books, or they're better known, or they have more followers. But he told me that they're always looking for people who have some interesting ideas to share and also are passionate about sharing them. And I don't know how, but he was following my work for 2 years, and he has actually seen all my videos. There are not even so many, but I had a few videos in English and a few in Slovak, and he even watched the videos in Slovak, and he doesn't speak a word in Slovak, but he wanted to see me interact in my natural language and in a natural way. So I was like, wow, this is so cool, right? And so he told me, okay, so we want you to come to New York and present at the TED stage at one of the official events, and it's happening in exactly 3 weeks. And I was like, no, you know, the dream is getting a little bit further away. And I was thinking, I mean, looking at my calendar, my agenda, I was like, okay, so 6 days from now, I am presenting at a conference for English teachers in Budapest. I still need to prepare my talk for that. And 2 weeks from now, I'm having a webinar in Slovak for 1,000 people who have already registered. And actually, in that week where the TED event was supposed to be, I'm speaking at the Polyglot conference in Ljubljana, and actually have 2 talks there which I haven't prepared yet. So how do I fit in a TED talk in between? And that was only the speeches I was supposed to have. Of course, I had a lot of other things going on, right? So I was like, oh my God, can I even do that? So the first challenge, the first question, the dilemma I had is like, am I even going to accept this challenge? Because it's not an easy one, as you can imagine. And Alex told me this is very unusual, that they would ask someone to come only 3 weeks before the event. That's due to very special circumstances, and all the speakers always have 3 to 6 months to prepare. And I had 3 weeks, and we are talking about, you know, including the journey to New York, including the days at the beginning where you are thinking, what am I going to wear, you know, and like, what about the flights, where do I go from, etc. So really, I had about 2 weeks to prepare for the TED Talk. So that was a really huge challenge. And my big question was, should I take that? Because this opportunity doesn't come, you know, whenever. Of course, I asked, can I come to another event? They said, well, we are actually booked with all the speakers for at least a year, so not really. And I was like, okay, then I guess I'm taking that, right? And so I did. I decided I'm taking it. But then came the second big question, and that was, what do I want to speak about? What is the one idea? If I asked you guys, if you could give me one good, solid piece of advice or something you want to talk about language learning, I'm sure you could do it easily, right? You would say like, I don't know, it's better to learn languages in short chunks more frequently than learn once a week for 5 hours. You agree with me? That's good, solid advice, right? Or you could say, well, the only way to improve your speaking is to speak a lot, right? Like that's kind of what we polyglots know, and what I'm trying to tell the world out there with my project, like language mentoring. And so I was thinking, these are all cool, but are these the one idea I want to share? Is this my one message I want to share with the world? Is this my thing which will be online forever and will be connected to my name? Like, is this the best I can say about language learning? And when you start to ask yourself that question, like, what is the best thing you can say? That's when it starts to get really scary, right? Because if you pick one thing, you cannot do anything else. And so I decided to talk about the thing which I believe, for me personally, it's like my main philosophy about language learning, and that is my 4 pillars about what I think language learning basically can be described with these 4 things. You need to make it fun, you need to spend a lot of time with the language, so have contact with it, use effective methods, and create a system so that you can do it with a plan. Like for me, this is the, thank you. I really think like all the languages I've learned so far were always this. Like I changed the methods, I changed the resources, but I always had fun, whatever I was doing, right? And I'm a systematic type of person, so I like to make a plan. So I was like, okay, this is what I want to share. This is my one idea. But out of all these, I want to stress the fun aspect. It needs to be fun. But now came the third dilemma. How do I put this in a 12-minute talk? And how do I structure the talk? What do I begin with, right? What do I say afterwards? How do I walk people through these 4 things without making it boring? You know, how do I get their interest at the beginning? Do I talk about myself? Do I come there and brag like, hey, I'm Lýdia, I speak all these languages? And I mean, you don't want to come across as a show-off, but at the same time you need to give them a reason to listen to you. You don't want to just come like, hey, I like learning languages and this is what I found out. So it was just incredibly difficult for me to find that way. I started to schedule talks with so many people, like every day I would talk to 3 or 4 people about this, like how to do it. I talked to people who are good at public speaking, I talked to polyglots, some of them are here with us. I talked to good speakers in the polyglot community, so I tried to really think, how should I put it, what should I do? And every day I spent about 6 to 7 hours preparing for this TED Talk and writing drafts. And I started with the first draft and I was like, this is pretty cool. And I showed it to someone, feedback is like, okay, gone. Let's try a different way, second draft, third draft. It was just crazy. It was just so intense going through these drafts one after another, trying to listen to the feedback of the people and trying to put it in there, but it seemed impossible because, how do you structure that talk? It was just, I did not know where to start. You want to make it a little bit amusing, but at the same time it can fall flat, right? So you need to be sure that you can tell a joke in a good way. So it was just so difficult. And so it started to haunt me. I was really pressured because of the time. I knew that my ticket to New York is bought. By the way, the TED company covered all my expenses, if anyone was curious. So they bought me a flight. At the beginning, I suggested, can I please suggest what flights would be good because I want to go to New York and then I need to fly to Ljubljana because of the Polyglot conference. And I suggested some flights and then the reply was, but Lýdia, but this flight is through Paris, why would you transfer? That's not very convenient. We want you to fly directly. And I was like, I didn't even look at those flights, I normally try to fly in the best way possible, in the cheaper flights, and they were really, really nice. They got me a hotel in Manhattan, so that was all very cool. But I need to prepare a talk to say in between, right? And I was starting to get really scared of this, and actually I started to doubt myself and whether I am up to the challenge at all. Because the drafts were not good. I knew that I can do a good talk, but they were just not good enough. I had super high expectations on what it should be like, and I thought that everyone else had high expectations. Because when I wrote it on my Facebook profile that I'm going to TED, of course, I got a lot of likes and supportive applauses and comments like this, rock that stage, you go impress them, you're gonna rock New York City, you will smash it, have a good time, So no one was doubting that I'm gonna do a great job out of this. It was just taken, this was granted. Because Lýdia, she speaks a lot, she's a good speaker, she will do a great job. So these comments actually made me even more nervous, to be honest. And some of them are from you guys, okay? I will not point fingers, but I get it. It's, of course, it's support, and I appreciate it very much. But at the same time, maybe just an idea for you guys. If you ever have someone who is facing a huge challenge, and they usually do well, don't take it for granted that they will, because it's seriously inside it feels like that. Seriously, like something is haunting you, and it's scary. So I was starting to panic. 3 days before the flight, I did not have my final draft. I did not know what I'm going to say and how I'm going to say that. And I didn't know it 2 days before the flight. And so I was trying to look for a person to turn to and to ask for help. And so I contacted this person. Anybody from Slovakia probably knows. This is Michal Truban. He's he's probably the most successful person that I know. He's a good friend of mine. And he's super successful in everything he's done. He started a company from the living room of his parents and turned it into this million business. It's really, really huge. He wrote a bestseller. He ran 2 Ironman, so he got success also in the sports area. He then went into politics, and this weekend his party won the European elections in Slovakia. So he knows success in many different ways. And I wrote to him Michal, please help me. I am just so stressed out. I'm really panicking. They invited me to this TED Talk. I don't think I am actually up to that challenge. What should I do? And his answer was ooh, wow, that's brutal. I wouldn't want to be in your shoes. Gee, thanks. Just what I wanted to hear from a successful person, that I look up to. But then he actually added something else, okay? That was not the only thing, fortunately, that he told me. And he said, look, Lydia, the stress, it's part of that. Like, it has to be there. If it was easy, anyone would do it, right? And it wouldn't be such a prestigious thing. So they invited you for a reason. They know you're a good speaker. They trust you. They know you can do a good job. You don't need to be the best ever, you know, you just need to do a good job. So prepare the best way you can, and don't try to fight the fear or the stress, just accept it. It's part of the journey, and try to enjoy it as much as you can. And you will see that a few hours before the TED Talk, the stress will pile up, and you will want it to end, and you will want to go away, and you will regret it, that you took it, but a few seconds before you go on the stage, you will suddenly get into a state of calmness, and you will walk on the stage, and you will deliver a good talk. I believe in you. So that was like so nice. I really loved it, and I especially love these words about not fighting the stress and this feeling, this panic, but just accepting and trying to enjoy it as much as I can. So here we come to New York, and I had my draft number 14 ready, and having no clue at all if it's a good talk or not. I mean, at that point, the final draft is the one I only showed to my 2 closest friends, because if I showed the previous draft to anyone, I got a lot of feedback and it was making me very insecure. So I just showed it to 2 friends of mine, 2 closest friends, and they said, Lydia, this is an amazing talk. But I had no clue if they were just being supportive or, you know, it was a good talk. I mean, they knew I didn't have a chance to redo it. So I came to New York, and I saw the stage, and it was a bit scary. But I did a rehearsal, and in the rehearsal I was speaking to an empty audience, and I totally forgot my lines in the middle of the talk. So it didn't really help my feeling of panic any better. Nevertheless, on the Tuesday of 23rd October, I went on the stage, and exactly like Michal said, I actually got into a peaceful state right before the talk. And I walked on the stage, and I had a very nice connection with the audience. They were really nice and supportive. And so I started to deliver my talk, and I started to actually enjoy it. This slide is interesting. You see what is in the picture there? It's a picture of the Polyglot Gathering, so you guys may actually see a glimpse of yourselves, whoever was here in 2018. How many of you were here in 2018? So you guys are in this picture. Cool, huh? And I really got into a really interesting feeling, and I got into the flow, and I was really enjoying myself. I was delivering the talk, and I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. I am sharing my message with the world, right? Everything was running really, really nicely. Until, in the middle of the talk, when I was in my flow, the TED event manager suddenly walks on the stage. And he says, I'm very sorry. Sorry, Lydia, to interrupt you. Sorry, guys. There is a technical problem with the microphone because Lydia's earrings are interfering with it, and we need to adjust that. And I was like, no, not now. Come on. I was in the flow, you know? I was giving my best version of the 14th draft of my TED Talk. And like, no, don't interrupt me now, but okay, we had to do it. So a guy came up on the stage, almost didn't reach up enough, you know, to adjust my microphone. I had to give him my earrings. So actually here well, you cannot see it in here. Here I still have my earrings. In the second part of the talk, I don't have my earrings. So that's how you will know now, insider information. So he adjusted my microphone, and the audience was super nice. They were like, they clapped their hands in, you know, supporting myself. And the TED event manager said, okay, Lydia, please go back 3 or 4 slides and start again. We are recording it, so everything's fine. I was like, oh boy, you know. So I took a deep breath and started to say it again, but the feeling I got from the audience changed so much. At the beginning, in the first part of my talk, I had genuine interest from the people. I saw them sitting, listening to me like, tell us how to learn languages. Now, I saw them thinking, we hope you can do that, you know? I felt sympathy, I felt pity. I mean, I mean it in a very, very good way. They were really sweet, very supportive. But a speaker does not want their audience to feel sympathy for them, right? You want genuine interest. So I felt that I looked at one of the guys in the audience, and his body position changed. So at the beginning, he was like listening like this, and then when this happened, he was like, you know, like that. And I don't know what that meant. He was probably just changing position because of his back or something, but it looked to me like, well, we'll see how you cope with that, right? So I'm sure he did not mean that, but these were the things that were going on in my head. I really want to give you the account that happened to me and how I saw it. And so while I was giving my talk for the second time, this part, I was thinking about 1,000 things at the same time. I was thinking, is this ever going to go online, like, or is this gone? Am I just delivering it for the people here? Are these people here now bored with the things that they have just heard a minute ago? Did I actually go to the right place, or should I have gone a few slides back, right? And I was just thinking about all these things and trying to do the talk at the same time, so it was like several layers of consciousness in my mind. And then I stopped in the middle of the sentence, and I totally forgot what I was going to say. And like more sympathy from the audience, more clapping. I was like, no, this is bad, you know. I just wanted to flee from there. Like this was fight or flight mode, like I've never had before. I do quite a lot of public speaking, but I've never ever forgotten anything I wanted to say. I always finish my sentences or whatever I could improvise, but here just blank, you know, for a few seconds. So then I was like, okay, there is fight or flight. I mean, there is no flight possibility here. I just have to do this, right? And any best way I can. So I took a deep breath and I finished the talk, and I somehow managed to get into a kind of a flow state again. It was not as the one at the beginning, but I could deliver my talk, and I actually gave my message to the audience, and they clapped their hands and they loved it. So the ending was nice. I mean, when I was leaving the stage, you don't really see it in this slide, but I have a very sad smile because I was like, oh God, this is not going online ever. Like I just ruined it with the stupid pearl earrings, you know. So I went down, but then I received really good feedback from the people. There was a networking event afterwards, and they were like, this was a cool talk, you know, we really loved it, it was interesting. But inside, again, I didn't know if they were just being nice or it was a good talk. So I spent a few more weeks waiting what will happen, because not all the talks make it on the TED website, right? They make a selection afterwards, and if the talk was good enough, then they put it online. If not, well, thank you very much for, you know, speaking at the TED event in New York, which of course is cool by itself, but of course I wanted to have my talk online. And so in December, then they wrote me an email and said, Lýdia, your talk has been edited. You know, they cut out the part in the middle, and they put the two things together, and they did an amazing editing job on it. And we are going to publish it on the website. I said, can I see it? It's like, you will see it on the 4th of January, you know, when it goes online. Okay. So I saw it together with everyone else, so I was like, okay, I know they wouldn't put it there if it wasn't, you know, good or anything, but I was nervous. And then what happened, I really did not expect that. It was just crazy. I mean, it was put online, The Secrets of Learning a New Language, and in the first 5 days it hit 1 million views. It became the TED Talk of the week. It was sent by email to millions of people who are subscribing to the newsletter. And today it had more than 4 million views, and it's just been online for more than 4 months, you know, so thank you. Thank you. I know, right? It's crazy. It's just crazy. Like, is this for real? Like sometimes, you know, I still cannot quite believe it. But what's funny, it's that sometimes people recognize me. So sometimes I talk to people who are not in the language learning community at all, and they talk to me and it's like, wait, aren't you the girl? I saw a TED Talk recently. So it's really nice to be recognized. And actually, in March, I was in Cambodia backpacking, and I met a 19-year-old girl who was backpacking too. And she was telling me that she likes to learn languages and she learns by herself. I was like, oh, really cool, how do you do that? She was like, yeah, basically, I learn my languages by watching Friends and reading Harry Potter. And if you've seen my TED Talk, then you know these were the two things that I mentioned, like the two examples of all the things that I've done, right? And I said, oh, really? I mean, that's so interesting, like Harry Potter and Friends, really? She was like, well, not really. I mean, I watch other series, not Friends, and I'm just starting to read Harry Potter. I was like, but wait, but why did you use these two examples? Did you like maybe see a TED Talk or something? And she's like, yeah, I did. And I was like, that was me. And she was like, no way, I'm talking to a TED speaker here, this is so cool, you know? I mean, she obviously didn't recognize me backpacking in Angkor Wat or something, you know, you wouldn't expect that. But it was just so nice to see that people are actually, they remember the stuff they heard in my TED Talk, you know? So many people write me emails every day that they got so inspired to learn languages, and I really motivated them, and they want to refresh their French or Spanish or whatever because they believe they can do it. So I actually managed to share a message with the world, and I'm really, really amazed at that. And when people ask me, like, how do you feel being a TED speaker, you know? It's so interesting because I'm telling you, it has always been a huge thing for me. Like, TED is huge, right? It's incredible. That's why I didn't believe the email when it landed in my inbox. But at the same time, these things change once you do them, because I did a TED talk, but I don't feel any special, you know? I think I'm a normal person who got very lucky because I got noticed by one of the curators, and I got invited. But I also got to know many other TED speakers at this event, and they're all normal people too. They were also wondering, like, why me, you know? So it feels amazing, and I'm incredibly grateful for this thing. But at the same time, you know, it's not like I wake up in the morning and like, oh, I'm a TED speaker. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to share this with you as my private account of the story. And that's actually all. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you. And I believe we're doing the questions with a Slido, right? Are we good with time? Oh, we are. Perfect. So if you have any questions, you can ask them on Slido, with the polyglot being the code word, and then E is the room. Okay. Did you learn your speech by heart? Okay. Yes, because 12 minutes, right? And I'm not used to doing that, and I don't like doing that, but it was totally necessary because you cannot really improvise. You cannot, you know, decide that in the middle of the talk, oh, I will tell this story. I mean, you want to know exactly what you're saying because you just have 12 minutes. So I did. I didn't feel comfortable doing it, but I had to. What is next on your bucket list? Let me see, I have a lot of items in there. Oh yeah, actually, so I've always wanted to publish a book, and I'm actually going to write one this year, so yay. We'll see about that. Now I made it public, so it's a commitment. So did you actually meet Ted? You mean from the movie Ted, like the bear, right? That's cute. Okay, how did TED influence your life? Grzegorz is asking. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it feels amazing, you know, and I got my message to at least 4 million people out there, and so they obviously many of them came here, right? So I influenced you guys coming here to Slovakia. That's one of the things. I guess many of them found my website, Language Mentoring, where I'm offering courses, so that might have helped as well. And besides, I don't know, I just, whenever I mention it, you know, people go like, oh wow, TED speaker, that's cool. And I got invited to several really interesting events so far. I haven't been able to accept them because they were rather short notice. But like, for example, the biggest TEDx event in Asia, in India, and a few other conferences, so that's, yeah, that's amazing. Okay, how much is it paid? So TED is very open about this. They do not pay their speakers. You share your message because you think your message is worth sharing and because it's a really prestigious thing, but they cover the expenses, but they will not pay you as a speaker. Okay, let me see. How did they know to invite you? Did you apply, or are you just really popular? No, they found me. I didn't even know that you can apply to be a TED speaker. I learned afterwards that you can. So this curator said that he's been following my work for 2 years. I don't know. Actually, I suspect that he found one of my Polyglot Gathering talks, because 2 years before the TED talk, one of the first talks I ever did was at the Polyglot Gathering. So thank you guys for coming to these events, and it's great that I had a chance to start speaking about languages in this way. So I don't think they are trying necessarily to find the most popular person in the area, or one who has the most followers, but someone that feels passionate about sharing a certain message. What inspired you to start language mentoring journey? Was it an immediate success? So, for those of you who don't know, language mentoring is my approach to be a bridge between us, polyglots, and the world out there who are struggling to learn one language for many years, and they don't know what they're doing wrong. So I realized these things after I started coming to these events, the Polyglot Gatherings and the conferences and Langfest in Canada, meeting you guys, that to learn a language, you know, we have something in common. We have fun, you know, we make it systematic, we spend a lot of time with the language using effective methods. So my language mentoring project is my way of putting these together and showing to the people out there, telling them you can learn a language too, and it doesn't need to be your 15th language. You know, you can just learn one language in the same way. And I'm doing courses for people to do that. And so what inspired me is this polyglot community. That's why I always love coming back and meeting you guys. And then obviously my own experience in learning languages and then teaching languages at the same time, because I used to teach for 10 years. And I was just frustrated with the fact that my students are not getting the result that I was getting with all my languages. And I was thinking, what is different? And I realized that the main difference is them expecting to be taught by their teacher and not doing anything else. And the moment they realize that they need to do something by themselves and like listen to podcasts and you know, read Harry Potter or watch Friends or whatever, that's when it starts breaking and working. So yeah, that was the polyglot community. Okay, there are a few more. Let me see if I missed some questions. Okay, 20 likes. Have you ever put on earrings before speaking on stage? Ever since? That's a good one. I'm actually having some now, right? Quite courageous, right? Now the thing is, I wouldn't do it if I knew that I would have this type of mic. It's not worth it. And yeah, if I talked to a famous TV presenter, Adela Vinceová for Slovaks, who told me like, yeah, earrings are treacherous, you know, don't wear them if you don't have to. So I would be careful about that. Okay, are there any questions in the audience? Does anyone want to ask a question? Just shout it without a microphone. Shall I just go through the rest of the questions then? Yeah, okay, cool. Thanks for all the questions, by the way, it's really nice. How do you practice your speeches? Yeah, that was tricky. I find it so difficult to memorize like word by word, so I was just rehearsing, always saying it a little bit in a different way. But yeah, it's just do it many times, and preferably sleep on it if you have the time and luxury, you know, of doing it in a few days and not in a short notice. Okay, yes.
How much time did you rehearse this one?
How much time I rehearse this talk? Okay, so the thing with me is I always rehearse a lot. I never go unprepared to any talk. So I always make sure I do it all with the timing and checking at least 5 or 6 times. So that's what I always do before any talk. And actually there is a really cool quote by Woodrow Wilson that I wanted to share with you. They asked him once how long he takes to prepare a speech, because he was a very good speaker. And he said, well, that depends on how long I'm supposed to speak for. If it's a 10-minute talk, I need 2 weeks. If it's a half an hour talk, I need a weekend. And if I can speak as long as I want, I'm ready, let's go, right? And that's so true. If I was to tell you about the TED Talk in 12 minutes, I would have needed much longer to prepare for that. So. For which one? For this one? So yeah, at least I did it at home, like rehearsing in front of a mirror. I always do that. I think it helps. At least 5 times, and so it was a 40-minute talk at home. So you do the math. I don't know. And yeah, and of course thinking about it, writing notes, preparing the presentation. So I would guess all in all 7, 8, 9 hours probably. Yeah. Now, do you give pieces of advice to Mikal for public speaking? No, that's sweet. I don't think he needs that. Are you still learning Swahili? It's interesting, guys. You're interested in so many different things. Cool. Okay, so my Swahili learning, now that we're having an honest discussion, no, because I always learn a language with a special purpose. And my purpose was to go to Tanzania and spend a month there, and I was going to do it in August. I even know an organization from the Netherlands who would take me as a volunteer, and they would make sure that I have an interesting program. It looks so cool, but I'm having health problems. I've been having cough for 2 months, and I just don't have the health state to take the yellow fever vaccination. So I think I will actually not be able to go to Tanzania in August, and that like kills my motivation right away. I don't just learn a language to learn a language. I want to use it for something. So I'm having a little break from Swahili right now. Okay, I think we don't need to go to. Oh, okay, this is a good one. Have you ever met two random Russians talk to each other? I mean, this is probably about the TED Talk. I said this story of Lucas, who I suppose that was the question to do with that. So one of the most popular things in the TED Talk, for those of you who haven't seen it, was that Lucas Bigetti came up with a really interesting way to learn languages, because he wanted to learn Russian, and he was really bad at learning English, so he didn't want to do it the school way, and so he added 100 random Russian speakers on Skype as friends, and then he opened a chat window with one of them and Google Translate in the middle, and a chat window with another person. And so he wrote in Google Translate hello, and it showed him привет. And he copied this to the first chat window, and the guy said like, привет, как дела? It's like, hi, how are you? And he copied this to the second person. And the second person said, хорошо, а у тебя? I'm fine, thank you. So he copied it back to the first person. And he had two Russians have a conversation with each other without knowing it, right? It's so cool. I love this method. That's why I really, really wanted to include it in the TED Talk. And I think we can actually end with that, right? If you have any further questions, please come to me. Let's talk in the next 2 days that I will enjoy as a carefree participant. And thank you so much for listening. Thank you, guys.